Good morning, Bitcoin. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is Proof of Work. Proof of Work is a show about the people behind Bitcoin and how they got here. Today we're joined by VESA from artforcrypto.com. How's it going, VESA?
Thanks, really cool. First of all, I'd like to extend a thanks for you for having me, as well as Adam for putting up this fancy soiree of ours, which has been a lot of fun thus far. So very
Absolutely.
good,
He's done an incredible job with this conference, and he's not getting enough credit. And I tried to get him in here for an interview, and he was a little camera shy, didn't want to do it. But yeah, the organizers of the conferences, they work so hard. You see them running around all day. They get very little credit and very little money. Sometimes they even have to pay for the conferences themselves. So definitely shout out to Adam from CoinFest UK. He's doing great work here, and he brought us all together. So definitely.
for sure.
So we're going to go ahead and start with everyone's most favorite and familiar question. What was your first computer?
That was actually quite the wallop what I had. It was a Commodore 64, and it was the portable version of it.
Portable at that time,
Yeah,
so we're
it was
talking
like
luggable?
We're talking like a thing you can kill a person with. It was the screen was that small, and the floppy disk, and the.
And was it a color screen or was it monochrome?
I think it was a color. It was
Nice,
fairly
nice.
fancy for being.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, that's not bad.
that kind of a thing. I'm born in '78, and it was something that I got fairly early in the game. That was a very cool thing that I.
And
my
what did you
family
use
invested
the Commodore for? What kind of things did you play or make?
Yeah, it was just play. It was Commando and Boulder Dash, and just
Yeah.
all the legendary first things. And also there was a submarine game. I forget what it was called, but that I think the submarine one was the very first one that I had. And the pad was so never mind.
The controls were rough?
Yeah, the controls were rough, but Commando was by far my favorite game, and I think we still have it in a garage somewhere in Finland.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I know my Apple II went to another family. And
Right.
it's one of those things like a dog or something where you want what's best for the computer, and it got used and loved, and something happened to it. Whereas if I put it in my garage, it would still be in the garage, but no one would have ever gotten to use it again. And you know, the life on a computer, it just goes down so fast.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So what else did you do with the Commodore 64? Did it lead you more into computers, or did you kind of drift away from computers after that?
I think the next major thing that I started doing was quite a long time after that. I never really got into coding, but my first real functional thing for a computer that I fell in love with was Photoshop. So that's become a big thing about the whole of my career and everything that allowed me to transition essentially from first a musician and a filmmaker to a contemporary artist. So. Photoshop, I've got a lot to thank those guys for. It's another one of those kind of companies and programs that you don't necessarily realize how big of a effort it has been to make that program and how essential it is to so many people's lives. And those guys don't get credit. I wouldn't be able to tell you the first name of not even the first person who's ever worked on that program, but
Sure.
I owe them a big gratitude, and it's kind of like a cognitive dissonance type of thing, but.
I remember I first got Photoshop in high school, and the very first thing we did is I had that clone tool, and it was truly amazing. You click on this, you click on that, and it makes a copy of whatever you had before, and pretty soon I was cloning the pretty girl into a picture with my friend, and I was cloning this and editing that and trimming the edges. It was really fun to be able to not just edit graphics like with Paint or whatever it was before, but to actually, like you say, to edit photos. What kind of things did you do with Photoshop when you got it?
Well, fairly similar to that, and I actually stuck with it because the whole other platform that I have and which I came known for in my contemporary art thing is that I started body painting, mostly on girls, and then photographing and making them into these whole big art pieces. So they are these sort of transitional moments where I try and get to know that person, and if there's something holding them back or their personal story, whatever it is, and then we try and imagine of how to get over that to become their best selves. So that became the whole thing. But yeah, that's largely, I never could have done it without Photoshop. So.
And I was also saying in the last video, this idea that, because we talked about copying games and how it allows you to play the game when you couldn't afford it. And in the same way, I got Photoshop and Microsoft Office, and I taught myself how to use them. And if I hadn't borrowed them from the company, I never could have afforded them. And then later on, when I worked professional jobs, they bought me Photoshop, they bought me Office, the company was rewarded. But what do you think about access to programs? Should people do whatever they can to get access to it, to learn it? Is it worth it?
Well, I was a fucking pirate.
There it is.
I'd be a total moralistic bastard if I said, and especially if you can't afford it. I certainly did it. Right now, I pay for my package. I think that was a part of my growing up process where I became a dignified adult. Is when I started paying for my Adobe products and everything.
Sure.
But it's barely on that. I think, in general, like if you're not really hurting that much anyone. I suppose you could argue that you are hurting the companies or whatever when you're ripping stuff off. But right now, looking back at my career, if I wouldn't have just like ripped off those programs and done what I had to do in order to survive and make this thing happen, I think the loss would be much greater than just the fact that I didn't. And maybe in the future I'll be able to do something back to Adobe or like a gesture of hand to pay back a debt. You know, it's like a...
Well, I think subscribing is a good start. I went the other way. I'm still using CS4 from before the subscription, so it doesn't phone home. Right. And it's just, what I like about it is every new version of Photoshop I would get, and I started on like 2.0, 3.0 something in the early days, and they'll move everything around and they'll add new features and they'll change the way things work. And it pisses me off because I have to relearn the program. And I know some of the features are probably amazing and I'd love them, but I'm happy with 4 because it just never changes. And I go in and I do like kind of collages and stuff. I stack things. It's not very advanced, but I can get it done. It crashes a little bit, but not that much. And then I save it and then I'm out and I'm done with it. So I'm satisfied.
You actually might like the new version of the 2019 because what they did was something, because their collage is what I do as well.
Sure.
And I play around a lot with the opacity layers. Mm-hmm. And one of the cool things that is now with the 2019 version is that when you go to overlay or soft or whatever, it actually shows you in real time as you go with the cursor of where it is. It changes as you do it, as opposed to you have to click it and then see what it is and then click again.
Sure.
So it actually made my workflow a hell of a lot faster, and I think some of these works are actually better because now I get to screen so much more in such a short amount of time of how these layers affect one another. So I don't know.
I might have to try it out, but right now I enjoy messing with my friend Jackson who works at Adobe. He's got, I don't know what he does exactly, but he was telling me one time, he was like, every click that you make in Photoshop, I can tell. Because like he's doing all the monitoring and he's trying to improve the software and trying to improve where they move things around, these kind of things. Because part of the beauty of having that software that phones home is that Adobe gets a lot more reports and information, and hopefully they use that to improve the program, not to do creepy Orwellian things. But I enjoy messing.
It's always the hope.
I enjoy messing with him. That I still use my old Photoshop, and they keep threatening me every time I upgrade Mac OS. They're like, your old version isn't going to work. Your old version's no good. And so far, so good. But yeah, I might have to try the new one. It's been quite a while since I've had any new features in there. I don't mind it that much. I enjoy, actually. I paid for the new Final Cut Pro, and I really like it. It has improved my workflow. It'll do background rendering, so I can keep editing while I'm rendering, and I wanted that in Premiere for decades, so it's been great. But we'll have to see how it goes. So after you're doing Photoshop and you're on the computer, how did you get from there to Bitcoin? Did someone tell you about it? Did you read about it? How did you discover it?
Yeah, it's actually, that journey started over a decade ago. Because I got red-pilled by the Zeitgeist film series.
Oh, nice! Yeah,
on the monetary system, and I actually got involved and put my own production company to producing the finished version of the Zeitgeist film.
Nice.
We didn't go Twin Towers or religion or anything like that. Sure. We just basically said, well, here's some human evolution. Now we have the monetary system. This is how it actually functions, and here's some of the corruption that it has, and here's Jacques Fresco. Essentially, that was our film, and Finland is only like 5 million people or something like that, and it was downloaded maybe I think it was something like 250,000, 300,000 people. So we made a dent, and it unfortunately also kind of like once I started going down the corruption route and started seeing what it is, I kind of started hating money. But at the same time, I'd been digitizing my work for like a decade. Yeah. Excuse me. So then, and I got introduced to Bitcoin first through this one guy in Finland, and this is maybe like 2013 or something, but he was getting a lot of shady press for a lot of different things at that point, and I went,
Sure.
like, maybe that's not for me, and I just didn't understand it at that point. But a couple of years ago, when I went for a coffee with a friend of mine, and he sort of told me where it was and what it really was, I was all in from that moment on. I was like, this is what I've been waiting for all this time, and it was actually in front of my eyes, and I could have bought in at 13 cents. You know, it's just
we all have the same story. You don't feel bad. I've got the same thing. I mean, I read about it on Slashdot. I even kind of knew in the back of my head, I was like, just get 1,000 and hold them, or just whatever. And I didn't, of course. But yeah, everyone has that same story. And I also think that it's not unreasonable. I was talking to a guy this morning. He said he was trained as a scientist. He was trained to be skeptical. I myself had been looking at digital currencies, used the PayPal, heard about the Liberty dollars, the e-gold, Chaumian Cash, all of these other things had gone up and gone down. There was no reason at the time to not believe that Bitcoin was just another one to go up and go down. And the fact that it hung on and just keeps going, that's what drew a lot of these people back. Because most people in Bitcoin are second chancers. They've like heard about it, then they came back, and then they were all in. Yeah. And then there's even people out there, I'm sure, third chance, fourth chance, fifth chance. It doesn't matter. You just have to get over it and get in, like try it. I had, in my mind, I wanted to buy $1,000 worth, but $1,000 was a lot of money to me at the time, and it stressed me out, so I couldn't do it. If I'd tried to buy $100 worth, it still would have been worth a ridiculous amount now, and I would have nailed it early. And what it would have caused me to do is to learn the technology and to just learn the basics, and that it's not that hard. Until I did that, though, there was a block in my mind, and I couldn't get through it. It took me many years and cost me a fortune or whatever, but everyone has that same story. So.
Well, I kind of, much like you, how I got into it, I didn't want to invest, but what I realized is that, well, I can make artworks and I can get a payment in coins. Yep. And that's cool. Yeah. Because that's almost like, well, there's some material cost, but most of it is almost like time for, something exchange, and the risk became worthwhile. And it's become such an advocate type of thing, is that I got a haircut yesterday, and there's this amazing lady who did it, and she's really cool, and she kept complaining how she doesn't have any time for anything, blah, 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 blah. It's all about money. It's like, once you come to London, first you see it, it's like, oh, this is great, and then you start working and you never see London again. And basically I just told her, well, listen, this is what happened with Bitcoin and what's going on. I mean, you could collect some of these coins in the simplest of ways. Just start accepting crypto for a haircut.
Sure.
And then just realize that if you hold on to, let's say you accept some Litecoin or something like that, then all of a sudden you've accepted it and you don't need it right now, and you sit on it and let some of those haircuts, like maybe do every 10th haircut and accept it in crypto, or invest that into crypto or whatever. All of a sudden that's your pension fund.
Yeah.
That's how ridiculous it is right now, the whole opportunity of what it is. But it's like it requires something to happen. Because for me, it was so easy because I had the whole worldview.
Yeah.
If you don't have the big picture of it all, you don't really understand why it would be important. It's like most people, if they see Alan Greenspan go and interview and say, no, oh, don't worry, the dollar will never go to zero because we can just keep printing more money. Like everyone who knows what he's saying is going cross-eyed. What is going on here? Am I in Twilight Zone? But if you don't understand it, it's just, it was a statement, I don't care. Maybe that's how it works.
Well, I think you're absolutely right on that. People have to be kind of primed for Bitcoin. You watched Zeitgeist and worked on it. I watched Zeitgeist and all the other things and studied the Federal Reserve. You have to know that the U.S. went off the gold standard. Very few people even know that. And Britain, the money's unbacked, and they're just printing it endlessly, this kind of thing. If you don't know that, you don't know why we need Bitcoin. So you don't know why all these people are excited about Bitcoin. And then you think that it's a cult or they want to make money or whatever. And, it's nice to make money. I'm not opposed to that. But like you say, it's about more than that. And I agree. When I saw the ability to take money on a QR code, I realized that I could make a YouTube show. And at the end, I could put up a QR code. And if the people liked it, they could send me $10. And the thing now, if you send me $10 through YouTube, they take 30%. If you send me $10 through PayPal, they take 10%, whatever. Twitter takes a cut. Everybody's taking a cut. And yes, they're providing me with a service. I'm not opposed to paying for YouTube or Twitter or these things in a fair way. But to have Bitcoin hop over those systems, put the $10 directly in my account, and then I get to decide what to do with it. That made all the difference for starting my shows.
For sure, yeah. like I'm thinking about opening my own Patreon account lately, but now I saw, because I've been following a lot of different things in politics and whatever. Obviously, from the artistic side, most of the people are very left or even like extreme left.
Sure.
And then coming to the like Jordan Peterson and the intellectual dark web and everything,
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
was Bitcoin didn't only like balance some of the monetary things; it started balancing my politics as well. Like in many ways, I'm probably still more left than I'm right, but I'm reserved to have my own opinions about things. And it's just like it started balancing also a whole world view from a different perspective. So it's been an incredible journey to kind of like get this wealth of knowledge, but that all turns into fuel and inspiration to turn that into art, so that art becomes a communication tool. Because if you look at most of the museum art or the postmodern movement of deconstructing and inspiration and ugliness and all that kind of stuff, is like almost art is not really relevant, because it's not showing you a direction of where you can go as a society or a person or anything. So what I'm trying to do with this whole thing is to transform that fuel into significance, something that is of substance, something that is of use to people, and then art can become truly valuable as not only like an exchange commodity or narcissistic sort of collectible show-off thing type of. It actually has a valuable communication that helps us become better as a species. And it sounds very lofty, but then at the same, why the hell not? Because that's the fuel that we've got right now, and I don't think we have anymore this kind of luxury of just sitting on our asses and thinking that everything's just going to be fine.
Yeah.
It won't be. Like if this calls you and you can do some sort of a participation or a contribution, then you should do. So it's like a calling almost, you know.
Well, I definitely agree with you. I'm more into like protest art or propaganda, something with a message to it. When you see a lot of the modern art, and I try to understand modern art, I definitely keep attending, but some of it I just actively don't like, and I don't see the purpose for it. It doesn't relate to me as a human. Whereas if you've got something like a protest poster from the 60s, I know right away what they're protesting against, why they're protesting against it, the purpose of combining the images. And I think now with Bitcoin and with cryptocurrency, even just encrypting your email, having private communications, using an end-to-end encryption system, it's what we need the art for. We need to motivate people. We need to remind them of the importance of privacy and Bitcoin, and that they have choices. So yeah, I would like to see art being much more interactive that way. A lot of our art in the U.S. is just corporate art or entertainment art, incredible shows like Sopranos or whatever, but it doesn't really improve society, doesn't really improve the human condition. It lets you enjoy yourself for half an hour or whatever, but beyond that, what does it do? So
it's also a freedom of speech issue. I mean, I was watching the Joe Rogan show with Jack Dorsey, the Twitter thing, and the censorship of the what's it like? Something like 1 to 24, the ratio of who gets censored if you're on the right or if you're on the left. So it's like a freedom of speech. We're losing it like ever so more quickly, and we were just talking with some guys who have a platform on Steemit, and basically we're going to do a project now soon which is about the whole freedom of speech thing. Is that you have these social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter and whatever, and the risk is constantly that even with them you just get censored out of your voice. But then again, it's like PayPal or whatever. If someone all of a sudden you're not appreciated, they take away your money as well. So now we are starting to have these alternatives like Steemit, where you can not only put your content and get paid and it can't be censored, but people can directly, once you put something in, even if you're liking something, there's a monetary incentive for artists to get involved and be a part of it because you're contributing to the platform. It's like you don't get jack from Facebook. Like it doesn't give you absolutely anything. It takes everything from you.
Yeah.
And right now those motherfuckers even put these, you're watching a video that you're enjoying and halfway through that short video there's an advert of 15 seconds.
Sure.
I'm going like, die. Die, platform, die, and still I'm dumb enough to go back. But
well, they stole all that video content too. They're doing a lot of buffering. They'll take it from YouTube. You won't even get the views. There's a whole thing when they started the Facebook video platform. They had to seed it from somewhere, so they went and got a bunch of content. But yeah, it's really bad that they don't pay not just creators, but even just normal users. If you put a photo up there and you get 20 likes, you're helping Facebook. You're helping the advertising engine, but you're not getting anything out of it. So
So cool. That's massive. So and again, another reason why to plug the whole crypto world is that it's like, if we lose our freedom of speech, we're lost entirely.
Yeah.
Like that's just it. So it's like, what a thing Satoshi did. What a fucking thing. You know, incredible.
And it was even greater that he disappeared, because we talk a lot about Satoshi being Prometheus, and that he brought fire to man, and what a great invention that was. But remember, Prometheus got chained to a rock, and a bird would come and eat his liver every day, and his liver would grow back, and the bird would come back. So Satoshi probably saw that and said, that's not happening to me.
Yeah.
And then he pulled off the second greatest trick that he's done, which is disappearing completely. So it's a pretty amazing
Banksy
thing.
of money.
Yeah. Well, sadly, we know who Banksy is now, I guess, pretty much. So.
Yeah, isn't that the guy from Massive Attack?
Massive Attack, yeah. They did a comparison, and he was at each place that Massive Attack did a concert in each place that had a Banksy. Then one of his friends went on a radio show and said something like, "Oh, the thing about Jim's art is that it does this," and of course Jim was the Massive Attack guy, and I have the name wrong or whatever, but that's the basic story. The confirmation that I have. So, but still incredible work, and I love Banksy. It's been amazing. I got to go to Amsterdam. They have a whole gallery of Banksys, and it was really amazing up there right now. So
no, it's like I was inspired by the story. I love the art as well, and whatever. But from my point of view, is what he does superbly well, and it's a very necessary voice. But I've grown tired of the art world. In a way that the only thing you can do, which is considered to be the top of the respectability spectrum, is that you criticize the world. You're not allowed to be inspired. You're not allowed to show beauty, and you're certainly not allowed to show a direction of where we can go. Because my inspiration keeps coming back from the days of Da Vinci and Michelangelo and those guys. They were imagining transcendent spiritual realities and inventing flying machines and looking into human anatomy to try and do a contribution to humanity. And I think that is why art became eventually valuable in the first place. And we've shat on that tradition to the point of where it's non-existent anymore, or if you try and do that, they will shut you out of the conversation because it's no longer cool, because you have to be a postmodern sort of Marxist in order to participate. And if you say anything that is even remotely positive about something like capitalism, then you're just the Satan. You know, so it's kind of like this deserves to become at least balanced in its perspective as well of what it can be. And I think a lot of people, if they started to see something a little bit more tangible and inspirational and more, maybe not normal, but something that is a little bit less negative or just gimmickry or something like that, something that has a direct impact. I mean, Banksy does. It's a direct impact with a simple, powerful message. But I would like to start seeing it more from the other side of the sort of spectrum as well. It's like, okay, we now know that the world is fucked. Now what? You know, so we don't need more, oh, the world is fucked like this as well. You know?
I feel very much the same way about Alex Jones. I've been listening to him and following him for a long time. And what I always found from Alex is he's great at defining the problem and at making the enemy seem unstoppable, but he's terrible at offering any kind of a solution or any kind of a positive aspect of what we could do going forward, even, you know, if half the things he says aren't true, even if 10% of the things, if, you know, 1%, if there's anything he says that's true, we have big problems and we need to fix them. And I agree with you. I'd like to see more solutions-based art, more solutions-based videos, these kind of things. And that's why when I found Bitcoin and when I decided to start making videos about it, I did it because it was a solution. And because I can be afraid of things, and I can make videos about how afraid I am of big things and how big they are. But I just thought that was really pointless. Like, I'm just running around in a circle. Whereas when I got to Bitcoin, I was like, okay, you know, I can make a YouTube show, hold up a QR code. You can make a YouTube show, hold up a QR code. You can put it on your art. You can get a donation that way. If I tell people about that, more people will do it. Good for everybody. Just in general, this idea of spreading the Bitcoin, making people better, more options, more choices, that kind of thing is just absolutely what I'm about. So
sure, man. Yeah. Respect. That's like it's problem solving. It's having hope. It's having a direction. It's like I got trained some years ago in neurolinguistic programming, NLP stuff. Sure. You know that?
Yeah.
And it was like the way that I got introduced to it is that first this one guy just realized that I had arachnophobia, and I still to this day don't realize how he knew that I had it.
Yeah.
But then he took it off of me. I'd had it ever since I was a little kid.
Huh.
And with this process, he took it off of me in like 5 minutes.
Huh.
And it stayed away. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? And then the next thing that I learned from it is that he said that, so what do you want, VESA? And I was like, well, what I don't want is, and then he asked me a couple of times, and then I was really good at defining what I didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, well, imagine this. Imagine a scenario like your brain is your taxi driver.
Yep.
And essentially right now you've hopped into your own taxi, and the taxi driver is now asking you, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And you said, not to the airport. The driver's going to go like, well, okay, man, so what, home, train station?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to go home. Well, where the fuck do you want to, like that's the,
Sure, sure.
Unless if you're driving your brain to a certain direction, and right now if you follow politics or you follow many movements in the world or whatever, most people are really great or defining what they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's sort of harder to define where you want to go because it's not the tradition. But that is the only solution that we can have in order to like get anywhere.
Well,
and then you have to
that's-
battle the world and the sort of Sisyphus
Yeah.
type of.
Well, that's what I've found from like studying other successful people or reading biographies or anything like that. It's always someone with an idea who wants to get somewhere. Jeff Bezos wanted to start an everything store. Steve Jobs wanted to give you a computer. This was what they wanted, and no one else had ever done that before. No one knew how to start the everything store or how to give everyone a computer. But they're just like, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. And they do it every day, and they dedicate themselves. And I agree. I think it's that directing that taxi, and that so many people don't direct it at all. And then a few people really do, and we see them shine. And we're like, why are they shining so much? Why am I shining so little? And I think you have to get in and decide where you want to go. I mean, I'm not supposed to be in England interviewing people. I'm not qualified for this. I'm a computer geek that does databases and solves problems on the internet. I should be in my cubicle. I've escaped, clearly. You can escape too. You're in the office, you're watching this, you're listening to this and mowing the lawn or something. You have to escape, but you can't just copy my escape plan. You have to come up with your own escape plan. You can't just say, taxi, do what Steve Jobs did or what Bezos did. They've done that now. It's spoiled, it's rotten, and plus it's not unique, it's not for you. The path for you is very unique, and I don't know what it is, and maybe you don't know what it is, but taking that direction, getting in that right direction, because even just right thought, right action, or the idea that action comes before motivation. When you get up in the morning, you have to take 10 minutes or take an hour, work on your project every day. I do a lot of journaling. I did a lot of like short story writing, these kind of things. You get better at it through repetition. It drives you crazy. You just want to write the perfect story the first time. You want to make the art perfect the first time, which will drive you absolutely insane. But once you're like, I'm going to write a rough draft, and tomorrow I'll make it better, and I'm going to make a sketch of the art, and tomorrow I'm going to make it better. That's the path to really making it better. It's long, it's frustrating, it's difficult. I often think of this little sportscaster show I watch, PTI. They argue about sports. And at the end of every show, Tony says, we'll try to do better the next time. And that's all I try to do. I try to do better the next time.
That's the only way that it can ever function. It's like that's what I find so disgusting about the whole social justice warrior movement right now. It's like this perpetuation of victimhood culture only. Like, I understand that it's a really important function that we have, that you criticize corrupt power structures.
Sure.
Like that's great, and some people have it rougher than others, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But if you just identify as someone who doesn't have any chance in the world or whatever, now we've actually reversed it, and now we have a society that rewards you for being a victim. And I think we're just gonna all get fucked through it. That's not, so I'm like, all of these kinds of empowerment movements, whether I do these body painting things or whether the crypto art or however I communicate, I try and, because like I have my own story and I haven't told my personal one, which has been a rough patch. Sure. Altogether, even though I had a pretty decent computer as a kid. It's not been a bed of roses, I can tell you that, for a multitude of different reasons. So I'm living proof that if that doesn't screw you up and you can still make it and you can craft your path, no matter how difficult it is, I'm proof that it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I know there's a whole bunch of people just losing their minds with middle-aged like white man who's like whatever, but I'll tell my story at some point, and then you can try it if you would have wanted to try and walk that path.
Sure.
You know,
and everyone's different. Everyone's, you know, different environments, and one of the things that we talk about a lot is that you have the, or we hope that you have equality of opportunity, that everyone can try, but we can't guarantee equality of outcome. You might have to try a lot more. You might have to make 1,000 artworks before you make a good one. Somebody else, they might make 10 and make a good one on 11. You know, who knows? But I can't guarantee that. But I can guarantee if you keep making the artwork, if you keep making the photos or whatever turns you on, if you keep doing it, you'll get better at it, and you'll get to where you need to go.
So I've got, maybe if you still allow it, I have a story for that, what happened, which is not kind of for the both of our stories. Like you saw this one image in the art room.
Yeah.
And it was done in collaboration with this, because it's such a crazy project, this whole thing of what happened, and it allowed me to rise quite fast in the crypto world as well. And when people here evaluate merit in a different kind of way as they do in the art world. And what happened is that I saw this video interview on Memory TV of this Bollywood actress called Veena Malik. And it was essentially that she had been on the Indian Big Brother show, like the 5th season or something like that. And she'd kissed the guy, and the whole of Pakistan lost their minds because, you know, this is not what you're meant to be doing, and they were condemning her. And there was a television interview that was almost set up like a trap. There was this TV host and a mufti, and the mufti started hammering into her and saying, like, your kids can't ever look at your pictures, you're a dirty woman, you've soiled everything, and the Pakistan condemns you or whatever. And she turned it all around, and this sort of tigress came out of her, and she said, yeah, because I'm a woman, I'm a soft target, that's why you go after me. But you actually have clerics raping kids in your mosques, you have wars being fought in the name of Islam, you have all of this stuff going on, but you go after me. Is it this? And she flipped the whole thing, the script around.
Wow.
And pretty much a day or two after that, 2 oil trucks came out of nowhere on a highway and crashed her car. So they tried to kill her, and she had to go into exile directly after that. And it was maybe like a year after her getting exiled from Pakistan that I saw this interview, and I was just like, whoa, that just like, that's incredible. So I sent her an email saying like, well, would you do a project with me? Would you get body painted here in Finland? And she's, within 24 hours I got a message back. I'd never seen a movie of hers, of nothing. I just saw this thing, and we met up in London and realized that, yeah, we certainly want to do this.
Wow.
And I realized that this is obviously quite controversial because she's Muslim and Pakistani, and I didn't want to make something that would be like petrol on the fire, or say bad things about Islam.
They start printing she's naked or some kind of thing. It's more trouble.
So it was just my process of how I do the work or whatever, but I did of course realize that there is controversy here, and it's part of the allure of it all. But she was communicating in a way, then I thought, okay, so if this is the foundation from where we go from, what if I try and find all the continents and all the mythology, all the religious traditions of what we have, I try and find in a 2-year process of what they have in common with one another, how they're like contributing to the whole of the big human story. And her own personal story is the foundation of it all. And from there we see how we relate to one another as men, women, as countries like Pakistan and Finland, or religions like Islam and Hinduism and Christianity and Judaism, whatever, all of this stuff. So the whole process took 2 years, and then when we published it, because this is a part of something that I still to this day consider really, really strange, is that this whole empowerment process that we did together, and this harmony that we created, not even in the conservative Pakistan did they didn't like get upset about it, because they realized that this is something like, this was a contribution, and it was a bridge building project, and this kind of thing. But it was accepted by 0 museums, no grants. There was a couple of commercial galleries, but most people wouldn't touch it with a pole. And it was it was also, we reached about 300 million people. It was BBC World, Times of India, Pakistan. It was just crazy amount of people. But how it was presented as opposed to what our press release was like 2 different worlds. So I learned the sort of rough way of getting into fake news, or you know, the way of like, they say, because most of the people who are running the museums now and are in the sort of curatorial slots in the art world. They're feminists and they're powerful women and whatever. And I started painfully realizing that a part of the reason I'm not invited to the party is that I simply come in the wrong package right now. It's just I'm a middle-aged white man.
Sure.
And because and I would be paranoid unless if so many people would have said that the art itself is substantial, the actual message is positive, it's healing, it's all, everything is right.
Yeah.
But in 10 years of being there, the art world has pretty much just shut me out and put a Berlin Wall up against me and said, no, you're gone. And that's been my sort of political journey of understanding as well, is that there's some people call it now like reverse racism, and I refuse to call it that because it's not that. It's just racism.
Yeah.
It's like if you're not ticking the right boxes and you're not an oppressed minority, and then you don't have a voice anymore. Simply because of, and that's something that I've been fighting my whole life, because my mother was an air hostess. So another way that I was actually quite privileged as a kid is that I got to travel quite a lot because I traveled with her.
Yeah.
I saw many cultures, all the traditions and different colors or whatever, and racism never made any sense to me.
No,
None of that stuff of like all the things that the West is now like accused of, the white supremacy and those are never like, that's been detestable to me always.
Yeah.
But now it's just like I never saw that coming, that now it would be turning into this way. It wasn't that let's all rise together. Now it's like let's pull everyone down and make the whole world a victim. And I'm just going like, this can't end well. This can't. And I've been so afraid to even start talking about this thing, because right now if you do start talking about it, all of a sudden you've got a mob of like really dedicated, really loud people who will tear you down if they will try their best to like do. So it's kind of terrifying even to start talking about it. But I'm so fed up with it right now that I don't care anymore.
Well,
I
totally,
fuck it, man.
I hear what you're saying, that you wish that the groups like, you know, minorities or women, people that were discriminated against in the past would use it to raise all boats and to bring us together. But instead it's being used to split people, like when India broke off and Pakistan broke off and the British Empire left it like that. They split them on purpose so that they would fight forever. And it's very sad. In the same way, the people probably bringing these other groups up brought them up in a way that split them off, that created the same fight, so that now we're having these kind of meaningless fights over these, you know, terms and what our backgrounds are and these things. So yeah, I hate to say it's all conspiratorial nonsense, but yeah, it does kind of feel like we could never get together, but I wish we could get together. I often think of things like space travel, Star Trek, science fiction futures, that we're all one big human family, and that we're trying to do kind of, you know, not like humans are the best species or whatever, but what's best for the species, what's best for the good of humanity or humanity or whatever you want to call it, and all that, you know, tilted language thing. But I think we should target towards that. We should have higher goals and higher ambitions, and it's unfortunate when trying to help people who have been oppressed leads us to just separate more and to split up more. But yeah, and I also think that it's fun to be an oppressed group. You know, it's fun to have a cause. It's fun to have something to rebel against. It motivates you. In a lot of ways, before I had Bitcoin, I didn't really have a cause. Like you're saying, I was an anti-person. I was against this or I was against that. Bitcoin was one of the first things where I said, I am in favor of Bitcoin. I like the technology. I like the sound money. I like computer things. This is the thing I like. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, and there's a lot to go from there. Yeah.
I actually figured out what I want to do as an art piece next. It's like it's called the future punk rock, and it's essentially like two dads and two moms, and they have green hair and like the whole thing, and then the kid comes to them and comes out of the closet and says, I'm Christian and straight. You know, it's like the whole.
It is, yeah. I was talking to someone else about parenting and how, like, you know, you want them to do this. Like I would want, if I had kids, I would want my kids to read books. So I would try to get them to do that. And of course they would rebel and not read books. So I would look at it from above and I would say, maybe I should teach them not to read books, and then they'll read books. And then you're on this multiple levels of reverse psychology and all those kind of things. It's very difficult to get the kind of results you want if you're result driven in that way. And it's the actuality of, you know, showing them by example what you do and then letting them choose and run free is probably the best, but the hardest, because you get the results you get and you don't get to be as influential as you might think. But then the more influence you apply, the more it might backfire and fail. So it's a very complicated thing. I don't know how to do it. I think it's also the individual of the child. Like, different children react to different things. So.
Well, I can only imagine, like, when I was a kid, there was like, all of a sudden you had anthrax and you had like satanic death metal or something, and that was the rebellious thing. Now everything's been deconstructed and rebelled to the point is that I think the new generation Y or something like that, they're turning quite conservative now, because the only way to rebel anymore is to kind of start rebelling against the rebellion. And it's a funny thing to see the world as a self-balancing machine like that, and then we're just these little cogs who go about our lives
old line, like, what are you rebelling against? And he says, what have you got? You know, like, it's very interesting stuff moving forward. We'll have to see where it goes as a world and as a society. But I do, again, like, I hope for the best. I think we have a lot of things now, like the Joe Rogan podcast talks about whatever he wants, goes like on and on and on. I'm still working my way through the Alex Jones interview on there. But it is interesting to see how these things go in waves and how it goes up and down. And they're having a massive conference outside of our door. I'm glad they chose that to be the place. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Where else should we go with this?
I'm fairly content. I think that was a big thing for me to just start talking about this in the way, because with other artists we've already been talking about this for quite some time, but I know there's many who are afraid to start talking because simply it's dangerous. No, I just want to keep my head down because it's like, but it's
well, you don't want to say the wrong thing, you don't want to offend people, but yet you want to be able to discuss the issue, and if we can move it forward, if we can improve it for everyone, it'd be good. Other people might not want that. I don't know. Everyone has a very individual perspective to everything, and I think it helps a lot to talk about it. But it can be dangerous, and you can step on toes and make mistakes, and you don't want to do that. So, but you still want to move the issue forward. So I see both sides of that.
We're like a tribal animal. We can't get away from the tribalism to a point, and you're always going to piss someone off. But I've quite often found myself without a tribe because simply I can't tolerate whatever bullshit that goes with that tribe that you have to swallow as well if you're going to be a part of that community. And in some ways I find crypto quite liberating because sure, it's tribal and people, there's scams, there's all different kinds of things. But what I really like about it is that, first of all, it's really entrepreneurial, but it's not only about making cash. There's a bigger mission quite often, at least with the people that I want to hang out with and what they're doing. It's people who want the world to be a better place, but they're not hippies in a drum circle somewhere excluded out. They're actually actively doing something. It's people with resources so they can actually make things happen, and it's quite supportive. It's definitely not a victimhood mentality. So there's many different ways of how all of a sudden I started feeling quite at home in this thing. And the bigger picture, I suppose, tying it all together is that, you know, in part, I don't think I want to talk too much about the social justice warrior culture because that has risen its head also due to a lot of the fuckery that happened in Wall Street. But it's essentially, you can only destabilize a whole structure if there's a lot of destabilization in it. And the monetary system destabilization is what is causing a lot of the polarization because people aren't doing too well and they're pissed. And we saw how no one went to prison in the 2008 burst. And so you can't just say, oh, it's the left, or you can't say, oh, it's the right, because it's the whole of the fuckery of the system that has been so vast, and now people are just so angry they're looking for different exits or who's to blame or whatever it is. And the only solution that I've come up with thus far is like, if you want to like mitigate this, is fix the money system. Because if people are starting to do well and they have a good attitude about things, then they don't want to tear each other to bits. So that's a part of the Bitcoin allure.
I definitely think that's the place to start. We need to fix the money system, a fixed supply, a supply that we know the number of, isn't being constantly inflated, stealing people's money through inflation. I think that's a great place to start. Thank you so much, VESA, for the interview. I think we covered a lot of different topics. We moved over quite a lot. Where can people learn more about your art and your work?
Yeah, it's artforcrypto.com, and on Twitter and Instagram, it's art by VESA. So that's art by VESA. And those, you know, if someone wants to find me, they'll find me.
Yeah.
Mad Bitcoins.
Yeah, thanks
Mad
so
cool.
much. We should do another
for
one,
having me.
follow up in 6 months or a year. We'll see how the world turns out, and maybe we'll see where we both are. It'd be fun to check in.
Fuck yeah, anytime, brother.
All right, thanks so much.
Cheers.